Hello and welcome back to my channel. My name is Kaylee. I've been cutting my hair for probably like 5-ish years. I typically don't do like big chops, so whenever I do want to like cut my hair short, I will go to a salon for that, or I'll try it at home and fail and then go to a salon for that. But for just like maintenance purposes, like trimming, adding layers, adding bangs, that kind of thing, I definitely haven't gone to a professional for that in like almost a decade. So anyways, today I'm going to be showing you how I put layers into my hair, the method I use that I find easiest. And I mean, honestly, cutting layers is pretty simple as is, but I have a few tips or like tricks to make sure that they turn out decent. So these are the only tools that I used. Of course, a pair of hair cutting scissors or shears, and then a clip to hold your hair back, hair tie to do the same thing. Of course, you're gonna need some kind of comb, and this one is optional. This is actually like a specific layering pair of shears, but you can achieve the same style of look by using regular shears and just point cutting them. Tip number one is to part your hair where you normally part your hair. So if that's a side part, do that, don't do a middle part. I only chose to do a middle part because I actually have curtain bangs at the moment, and those do look best being down the middle. Tip number two is to divide your hair into two different sections, both top and bottom, starting just above your ears. Then tie the bottom section up with an elastic and stick it in the back because that will not be getting cut. The top section is where we're adding layers and the only place that we're adding layers. Dividing out these two sections will ensure that we won't be cutting any weight off of the end, so it won't be getting shorter overall, and it'll stay just as thick. Tip number three is to cross your fingers when you're holding the hair that you're about to cut if you have a finger gap. If you don't have a finger gap, then you don't have to do this. So you probably already know this, but the greater the angle that you hold your hair away from its root, the shorter the layers are going to be. So for instance, if you hold your hair at a 45-degree angle away from the root, you will have fairly long layers close to the ends of your hair. If you want really short layers, try extending them at a 180-degree angle. Tip number four, if you have thinning shears, is to just go ahead and cut your layers with a blunt cut. You don't have to worry about point cutting because the thinning shears will give it that soft look. Personally, I've found that this saves me a decent amount of time because I don't have to be precise and I'm not worried about cutting my fingers. If you don't have any thinning shears, no worries, but I would definitely recommend to do at least a little bit of point cutting so that the layers aren't quite as blunt and they are a bit softer. So now that I've finished cutting layers into my hair and I've already checked it to make sure that it's even on both sides, I am going to go back over and use my thinning shears to soften the cut. So I tend to be a little overzealous when it comes to the thinning shears. I definitely recommend going in smaller chunks. I typically create like a V shape where the largest portion is at the top of my head, and this just ensures that I am cutting the least amount of hair from the longest layers that we just created. This helps to keep your ends very thick. I chose to overextend my layers past the 180-degree mark in order to achieve that really light and soft layered look. And that's pretty much everything. I just continued to thin out my layers the rest of the way around to my head, and then my cut was done. So this is how my hair turned out. I did just throw some curls into it and then a little bit of dry shampoo to add a little bit of volume at my roots. So I love it. It honestly doesn't look that much different than my hair did before, and that's because I sectioned out the two parts, upper and lower, and then I tucked the lower part away and didn't cut it at all. That kept all of the weight at the bottom the same. So the ends of my hair are basically just as thick as they were before. I didn't lose any length and I love it. That's definitely what I wanted to keep. And then adding the extra layers into this middle section here just added a lot of volume there. So I feel like my hair looks healthier and definitely more voluminous than it did to begin with. But yeah, so I honestly love it. I personally feel like by separating the two different sections of hair, it's pretty much foolproof. You cannot mess this up because you're still leaving the length of your hair there. So you're not gonna end up with these really straggly ends. It's gonna remain just as thick. So yeah, that's just my main tip. And then of course, you know, if you don't have the thinning shears that I use, just point cut. If you don't feel comfortable doing that, then you know, you definitely don't have to. But if you just go in blunt cut, you really can't mess it up a whole lot. And if you do, I mean, it's just hair, it grows back. But yeah, so I hope that this video helped you and maybe you learned something. I'm not sure, everything's pretty basic, but this is just how I cut my layers and it has been working for me for thus far. I hope that it works for you too, and if you enjoyed watching this video, definitely give it a like and consider subscribing to my channel. So I hope to see you next time. Bye!